getting it. It's not from the legalized market. And so, quite frankly, right now, it's easier for a kid who's under the age of 21 to get marijuana on the playground than it is to walk into Walmart or Safeway and buy a beer. Because when they walk into Walmart or Safeway, they've got to show ID because it's regulated. So as the legalized market becomes bigger and bigger and replaces more of the black market, it will make it more difficult for those kids to get it.
Well, I hope that that's one avenue for us to help get young people out of that. We've got a caller. Let's go ahead and add another person to our conversation. What's your first name? Hi.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am talking to you.
My name is Greg, and I'm calling from West Richland, and I just have 2 points I'd like to make. Talking about the potency of marijuana has increased dramatically from when it first hit the public scene in the 60s. And it does build up in the body. The THC builds up in the body, and we have yet to see, but I believe it's coming, some very severe psychotic reactions in people. And that's just one of the evils that we haven't seen yet, but I'm sure it's coming. And this is all brought about by the government's thirst for money. This is another source of tax revenue, and there's going to be a price to pay. And just buckle your seatbelt because it's going to hit hard.
Is there any research to indicate that, or this is your opinion at this point?
No, there is research to indicate that THC does build up in the system. It lasts from 6 to 8 months in the system, and it will build up. And marijuana is much more potent. It's been proven. It's much more potent nowadays than it was when it was first introduced to the vast public, I believe, in the 60s, the love generation in America.
Okay. And what's the second point that you wanted to share?
Tax money. This is all being brought about by the government's thirst for tax money, another source of tax revenue, and the public is going to pay a price for it.
Well, I don't think that the government was behind...
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. I don't think government was behind the initial initiative, 502, to let the citizens decide. I don't know, though. Maybe they were.
Well, I think what happened is the government, when the move to legalize it, especially the ACLU has been very much behind it. In fact, they helped craft the legislation, but obviously the government said, well, it's going to have to be regulated, so to them it presented an opportunity through the Liquor Control Board to generate tax revenue, and that is regardless of your position on it, pro or con, that it was one of the big selling points from the ACLU was if fully implemented, it would present a significant source of tax revenues. So that was one of the big selling points that they put forth.
Okay. I want to get back to the labeling of edibles because I think that that's really important. How do people know that this is not just, a nice caramel that I bought at, a drugstore for, in the candy counter?
Well, the Liquor Control Board literally has pages and pages and pages of regulations that they require the processors, the people who package it, have to put on all their product. And so on that labeling, it includes that it is marijuana. It will talk about how much marijuana there is per serving. The packaging has to be done up in such a way that it is not attractive to kids. They go so far as to put yucky faces on them. Even the coloring that they use on the packages has to be certain colors so that kids aren't attracted to them. So we can't sell anything like lollipops or anything that a kid could look at and go, ooh, I'd like to try that.
Okay. Back to parental responsibility there again as well. So the previous caller also talked about marijuana being so much more potent than it was in the 1960s. And, I've heard that before. Do you find truth in that? Is that fair?
Well, there's some truth to it, but let me clarify. It's like alcohol. You can buy a beer that has 5% alcohol in it. You can buy whiskey that has 40% alcohol in it. And depending on your tastes or your likes, you can choose one or the other. Marijuana is the same way. And the nice thing about buying it from a recreational store is all that marijuana has been tested in a state lab before it's being sold. So you know exactly what you're getting. You know that you're not getting something that's weak if you want something that's potent. To address his point about it being unsafe, there's not a single documented case of anybody ever overdosing on marijuana. Now, you can't say that about wine or alcohol or just about anything else. Marijuana is not something that you can overdose on. You just can't. You'll wake up the next day. You might feel like you had a rough night, but that's about it.
Okay, so if I go into the store and I'm going to buy some product, I will actually, there are different kinds of effects that I can decide which one I want.
Yeah,
is that right?
That's a good question. Marijuana comes in different strains.
Okay.
And so if you kind of broke it down into the two main types of strains, there's what's called a indica and there's a sativa. An indica is something that will basically relax you. Some people use it for pain. We don't sell it in a medical situation right now, but some people will use that for that. A sativa is something more that will kind of lift you up, and if you wanted to just have a good time with some friends and not be sit on the couch watching movies all night eating Doritos, a sativa might be a better choice for that.
Okay, all right, and I'll be able to get that information when I go to a store. What are the I would call them clerks, but what are they called?
Well, we call them cannabis coaches. So
okay.
When you come in, you're
Coaches.
put one-on-one with a cannabis coach, and they show you our menu, and they will answer any questions that you have. So there's people that come in that have a lot of experience with marijuana, and they know exactly what they want, and they can basically tell the cannabis coach what they want. But more often than not, there's people that are new to this, and they have a lot of questions, and the cannabis coaches sit down with them, and they walk them through it.
All right. Let's add another person to our conversation. How about a first name? Hi there.
So this is Sven.
Okay.
From Pasco.
Okay.
I just have a quick question for the gentleman. I know it's been said before, but does he feel that marijuana could be a gateway drug to other things?
Good question.
That is a good question. That's a question that I get a lot. My feeling is that in the black market, yes, because when you're buying from a dealer, that dealer has access to marijuana. He may have access to methamphetamines. He may have access to all sorts of things. When you walk into the store, we only sell one thing only, and that's marijuana. And there's a lot of studies on this very question, and there's no cause and effect there between using marijuana and using, for example, something harder like heroin or cocaine.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in your store, you're only selling marijuana, so it can't be a gateway there at that location.
We're not gonna.
But just simply being involved with marijuana, you can move up the chain. I mean, that is possible.
Well, it's
not a direct line for everyone, for every person.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can't call it cause and effect.
Okay.
But if somebody comes in to our store, they're only going to get marijuana. We're not going to try and sell them something else. And that's what I like about the legal market as opposed to the black market, because in the black market, you are going to get upsold to something else.
All right. Well, we had a caller that brought up the issue of taxes. And when we come back from this break that we're going to take, we're going to add the Prosser City Mayor to our conversation and ask him about tax money. So that's coming up next right here on News Talk 870. So the acting city manager, I think, is that correct, Paul?
Yeah, city administrator.
So you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate that you've taken some time out to talk to us here. We all want to know about tax money because I think that people believe that cities somehow are getting an extra bounce if they have a marijuana store because they're getting some extra tax money. Tell us what the situation is.
Yeah, that's a kind of a common misperception, I think, about I-502 is that cities that have allowed it are raking in a whole bunch of state revenue. The excise taxes levied on the different phases of the marijuana industry go directly to the state and do not come back to local jurisdictions such as cities and counties. So Mr. Thompson's marijuana store is like any other store in that it collects 8.3% sales tax on its sales. That goes to the state, and of each 8.3 cents on a dollar, we get back 1.8 cents. So if somebody spends $10 in Mr. Thompson's store, we get back something less than 20 cents. So it's no different than somebody going in and buying socks or fishing tackle or something like that. So
there's no financial and tax incentive for a city to decide that they're going to sell marijuana. Tell me what happened in Prosser, that you are the one and only jurisdiction in our area that agreed to allow a store.
Well, we didn't so much agree to allow a store. We as staff, myself, went to council and said 502 passed. Here's the regulations set forth by the Liquor Control Board on where retail operations could locate, and we showed them on the map. There's very few spots in Prosser because there's restrictions. They have to be 500 feet or 1,000 feet from parks or schools or daycares, things like that. So we showed the council and said, this is what we're doing. If somebody comes in, we will process it like any other business applying. And that was it. We didn't go out looking for a marijuana store, and frankly, we didn't care if one located here or not. It was just, we just got ourselves ready like we would for any other legal business in Washington.
Mm-hmm. Have you been contacted by other cities to find out what's going on in Prosser?
Yeah, a few. Yep.
People, other cities that are considering if they're going to create a moratorium or not?
Yeah, I've had council members from other cities call me because the questions coming up, whether to have a ban or not have a ban, and they ask questions of Prosser's experience or what we went through to get where we are. So, yeah.
I know that a lot of people who are voters are disappointed that we have a democratic process, and the majority of people voted that yes, they wanted marijuana legal sales available in Washington, but cities and counties have kind of circumvented that. So you seem unusual.
Well, a little bit. That maybe the approach we took is because there have been some lawsuits against jurisdictions. I think Wenatchee was the first one, and the city of Fife over near Tacoma was also sued. And being a small town without deep cash reserves, we didn't feel like that was a fight we wanted to fight. If somebody wanted to locate here under I-502 and they said our ban was illegal, our insurance company doesn't pay for that. That would be straight out of our pocket. And we estimated it would cost about maybe $50,000 to $70,000 to defend that. And if it got appealed, it would be another so much, thousands of dollars, probably as much or more. So that was something. It didn't intimidate us or scare us, but that was a consideration in also just processing the marijuana business as it was written and passed by the Washington State voters. Because, some of the comments on the council were, probably on this side of the mountain, Governor Inslee didn't win the vote in our town, but he's still our governor, and he's still the governor of Benton County. And so that was, it felt funny, I think, to some of the councilmen to say, well, we don't agree with the statewide vote. We're going to do something different.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us from your perspective, running the city government, or even just a citizen of Prosser, have you noticed any? Have you witnessed any changes about Prosser because of the store?
No, the store itself's been pretty benign. I also serve on the Anti-Drug Coalition with Jennifer Dorsett. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest challenge of 502 and having a retail store in Prosser is the message it gives to the kids. If they're looking for an excuse to maybe smoke marijuana or use alcohol or use tobacco, society norms, I think, play a big part, as Jen said, and I think that's probably our biggest responsibility as a state and as a society, to make sure that kids know the facts and make the right choices. So that's as a citizen and as a mayor serving on the drug coalition. So other than that, the presence of the pot store in Prosser has been pretty benign. I haven't seen anybody walking down the street smoking marijuana, or we haven't been flooded by hippies and fringe buckskin coats and
yeah, but
there's a lot of pictures painted for the store open by people opposed to it, and I don't see how any of it's come to pass other than probably the increased use by our young people, which is that's a valid concern and it's something we have to address.
Do you think there's going to be any tourism related to it? Do you hear of that? I was talking to Tim earlier. Colorado is certainly making a business out of it, inviting people to come to their areas, to their state.
Prosser is has a huge amount of wine tourism. We have 31 wineries, I think, in the city limits, and if there's people coming to tour the altitude store. I'm not aware of it, but I guess it wouldn't surprise me if people came in a limousine or a bus from out of the area and were curious about it, and they were all visiting wineries. That wouldn't surprise me. I don't know if that's happened or not, but like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if that's part of it.
All right. Well, Mayor Paul Warden, thank you so much for joining our conversation today, because I think that what you had to say added to our knowledge base. Prosser is ending up to be kind of an interesting little test case for us, and a lot of other communities can learn from what is going on there. So thank you for being brave enough to allow a store and for sharing your information with us today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Christine.
Bye-bye. All right, Tim. Have you, what kind of interaction have you had with the city council or any of the city offices?
Well, initially, before we opened up in July, there was a lot of city council meetings where people could come in and give public opinion for or against, and it was very well attended. There was one meeting I remember, it was literally standing room only, and it was lined up out the door and down the block for people that wanted to come in and give their opinion on it. So I applaud Prosser for basically following state law and allowing this to happen, because a lot of the towns are fighting it, and they are getting tangled up in these lawsuits, like Mayor Warden had said. And there's no point in that when it is legal, and there's a lot of positive benefits for this. You know, we have about 25 people that work in that store. Those are jobs that people didn't have before. We've calculated that over 60,000 people have come to Prosser to visit our store since we opened. Those 60,000 people have got to get gas somewhere. They've got to get food somewhere. They come and they visit the wineries. They go downtown and visit downtown Prosser, which is a great little town. So those are all positive things that are happening because of this. So
that's an interesting little offshoot there. You know, one of the things, we're going to take our final break here, but I wanted to talk with you about, you know, you're working and trying to give some of your profits away, and some groups have said they don't want it. But I want to talk with you more about that. Owned a grow operation, and I believe he tried to donate. It was around $15,000. He tried to give it to the school, to the school district, and they refused it. They said they didn't want to send the wrong message. Right. And then he tried to give it away. I believe it was to the Boys and Girls Club, same answer. And then he finally was able to give it away. I believe he gave it to some homeless people or veterans or something to that effect. So it was really tough. It was the toughest $15,000 to give away, I think. So I wonder of all of those sources, have they taken winery money? Absolutely. That was one of the contentions was the school throws on these events that are sponsored by one of the many wineries in Prosser, but they wouldn't take money from this grower. Well, from your point of view, Tim, where do you see the positive effects of your store on the community? Do you? Yeah, absolutely. I think that we are a law-abiding, tax-paying business, just like any other in Prosser. And, and I'm proud that we are employing a lot of people. I'm proud that we're bringing in people to Prosser. You know, this is not my only business, my chiropractic business as well, and you know, I feel like I'm contributing. So, I think that Altitude has led the way. We've been open since day one, and I'm proud of the fact that we're in there in Prosser and doing our thing. All right. Tim, thank you so much. Boy, we have learned quite a bit that we didn't know before. And I thank all the folks that called in and joined our conversation today as well. Some very good input. Thank you. I think so. Here's just a thought today. And basically, it's my thought is pay it forward. You know, you never know. You never know when you're going to be in a situation where you need a little help. And let me tell you, people, that's my situation right now. When you can't write, when you can't dress yourself, when you've only got one hand, it's a really interesting learning experience for me right now, I'll tell you that. Well, what are we going to do tomorrow, though? I got something interesting that I want to talk about tomorrow, too. We're going to talk about marriage counseling. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. A lot of relationships, you know, the state of marriage today is kind of in a bad way, some people would say. But we're going to have an opportunity to learn how can marriage counseling help you, or maybe even sort out whether you should even try. I think it'll be a really good conversation. So please join us tomorrow. You know, in the meantime, this is Meet in the Middle. I'm Christine Brown. Boy, I've sure enjoyed you today. It's been a lot of fun. Why don't we do it again tomorrow?